Mr. Thornton, you want me to kick us off? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are going to discuss two topics that are on the agenda. One is the neighborhood leaders, and the second is the grant specialists, and kind of an update on what they're doing, where we might see them going in the future. But with that being said, I think we've got a brief presentation from Director Banerjee, and Tim and Terrace are both here to help answer any questions that you may have related to the neighborhood leaders. Haley, kick it over to you.
All right. I promise it will not be a long PowerPoint presentation. So can everyone see my screen?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So we're just going to talk about the neighborhood leaders contract and specifically performance measures of the current contract. And just as a reminder, the current contract runs January 1st through December 31st. We've talked about getting that more in line with the actual fiscal year cycle. The funding amount for the contract currently is $750,000. And the current performance measures are really centered around a lot of outputs. And in our department, we talk a lot about, Commissioner Thornton?
What, could you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
And it says the funding amount is 700. Wasn't that 850 originally, or did that change?
The first allocation was $800,000 for the calendar year contract, and then for the last two fiscal years, I think the amount has been $750,000.
Is there any reason that decreased?
That did not come from our department. I think that was something in the budget process.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think the thought was that first year we had to buy computers for everybody and some other equipment.
Some startup costs.
The mayor thought we wouldn't need as much next year, but
so that makes sense. So I guess my point is that probably should have been in the original contract. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you.
Okay. So for current performance measures, we're looking at a number of different outputs. So number of folks who are served in the following areas on the slide. And when we talk about outputs and outcomes in our department, really the distinction there is an output is how many people were connected to SNAP benefits. An outcome would be of the percentage of people that were assisted to get SNAP benefits, how many or what percentage were actually successful in accessing that kind of benefit. So, you know, we're looking at a number of different outputs here and the actual numbers served of those neighborhood leaders. And I think one of the challenges with this program being such a general case management and resource referral program is that a neighborhood leader could be working with somebody on accessing childcare one day, and then the next person is working on accessing like workforce development opportunities, and the next person could need assistance with COVID testing. And so it's hard to get some really uniform and direct measures that apply to every single client or person that the neighborhood leaders could be interacting with. So what we've tried to do, and in working with Tim and Terrace, our staff has tried to outline a logic model, which is a chart that we had talked about way back when in, I think, 2019, when we first started talking about the prosperity package, to really just outline what's going into this program, what are our broad goals for this program, and then what are the actual outputs and outcomes of this program. And what we'd ask for you guys today is feedback on where do you want this program to focus? When you look at the outcomes and outputs listed here, what we're tracking or what we want to be tracking, are there things that stick out to you? Are there things that you really want to be focused on in this program? Are there things you don't want them to focus on in this program? So we've got this up right now. So this is in the goal area of case management. So you see outputs in number of people served, number of referrals made, number of follow-ups, and then outcomes would be number of people assisted who found employment or who secured childcare, who received health care, received SNAP, WIC, unemployment, disability, earned income tax credit, who find affordable housing or become permanently housed, and then percentage of people who are completing job training programs. So I know that's a lot of information, and Tim and Terrace, please feel free to add any input to this process too.
No, I appreciate what you shared. It's been pretty clear. as you stated, the performance measures the performance expectations are those that are listed in the logic model as the goal. And those were directly extracted from the program model that we presented initially. And so, yes, the activities are stated there. Thank you. Thank you, guys. If you have any questions or commentary, we absolutely appreciate it. But the activities, and again, the outputs and the outcomes as it relates to case management, which is a great deal of what the neighborhood leaders are doing as a means of recording what it is they're doing. And as you know, we are using the online tool that was generated for us through Geospatial, and we so appreciate them. But in entering information in the online tool, there's also a dashboard that's created, the comprehensive dashboard, and all of us have access to that, mayor and commission, as you, Haley, and others within a Athens-Clarke County government. So just opportunity to see that information with a click, is real time, it's live. Last year we would have to wait on a refresh, but now as soon as it's entered, you can click the link to see that. So just want to state that those activities will be very visible to all of us.
And just to make sure that those of you who haven't seen this draft logic model, understand this is the first page, and it's the case management.
And could you speak
goal
just a
that's
little?
in the contract. There are several additional goals in addition to that case management page that I think Haley has in her slideshow. But
yes, there should be 6 goals, and I'm sure Haley will go through those because all of them are entered here on the logic model. But those 6 goals are the exact 6 performance expectations or measures, based on your jargon, that the neighborhood leaders will be doing. It outlines the position and kind of breaks everything down.
And each of those is from that original resolution.
Absolutely.
Description.
Thanks,
of what
Tim. Thanks, Tim. Mm-hmm.
So I can share too. So that first goal being case management.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got community outreach and information sharing. We've got civic engagement and the public input process, identifying zone-specific needs for each prosperity zone, and then neighborhood leaders' professional development. So I can go through, or Tim and Terrace, if you want to go through each of the outcomes in those other goal areas, or want to necessarily read to you, and we appreciate aiming for a quick meeting. But Commissioner Thornton, did you have any feedback on these or want to focus on a particular area first?
I think she's saying she'll wait.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention civic engagement and public input process. It's happening now, but our neighborhood leaders are making monthly contact with commissioners, and of course they're engaged in, they're sitting at the table, lots of meetings, advisory boards, or what have you. But we're also interested in creating an interactive joint session or interactive session with commissioners and our neighborhood leaders continually. Our goal would be to have 3 to 4 commissioners engage our neighborhood leaders quarterly. We'll set aside one of our meetings to have opportunity to just further connect, communicate, maybe share tasks such that we are serving, again, our community at large. So I just wanted to mention that one under civic engagement and public process. It's not there now, but that's one of the kind of what we're thinking of now, and hopefully our commissioners will be okay with that. We absolutely want to strengthen our partnership, as we're doing the same with our other departments with Athens-Clarke County government, just strengthening the communication, vetting information such that it gets to the individual resident. But I just wanted to mention that. And so hopefully our commissioners are okay with that. We look forward to our quarterly, we're going to call them quarterly interactive sessions.
Chair, do you mind if I ask a quick question? Is there a way where perhaps Nikki, if Haley can email this presentation to us?
Yes.
And also, Terrace and Tim, I don't know if y'all have any numbers for the outcomes yet based on the year or two that you've been doing it, but maybe that might be helpful too, based on what you have here. If you have those numbers.
We have some of that. We have a lot more output numbers, but yes, we can share.
Okay, that's understandable. Yeah, that's understandable. I would imagine it's still early. So
yes.
And
we can definitely share if you want a up to date data. We can definitely share that. We've been sharing that along the way, and we definitely can continue to do so. In fact, I just looked at our dashboard prior to the meeting, and there's a lot of information out there even now. But we could definitely get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and I guess that was one of my questions that I was getting from some of the neighborhood leaders. They thought we were getting these numbers on a regular basis. So now I'm wondering if they think that we, the commissioners, maybe Haley's getting them on a regular basis, but if they are thinking that, do you think it's because they thought we have gone or looked at the dashboard or the online information? And
yes,
if that is the case, how, I wouldn't have known to do that. I don't know about any of the other commissioners, but I do know that several of your neighborhood leaders assumed we were abreast of all that they're doing. And now that you say that, I'm wondering, do they think that we are looking on the dashboard or the online media?
Yes, I would love to respond to that. They are absolutely under the impression that you guys are indeed taking a look at the dashboard. That's the information I was given up, and when we were trained for it, that we all have access, and you, mayor, commission, and other officers, Haley, Blaine, and others have access to the dashboard. And that's what the neighborhood leaders were informed, that at any moment, you guys, if you're interested, we don't know, you may decide today, Commissioner Thornton, that you want to find out what's happening in your zone or what's been the trending need or what have you. And you could access the dashboard link and it shows everything. So that the neighborhood leaders are indeed, they're expecting you guys to possibly take a look at the dashboard. And I'll be very honest, I thought you were doing so as well.
I had no, I am very, very connected and in communication with Patrick Howard.
Yes.
He sets up meetings ahead of time, not just when there's a problem. He always asks what I need. So I have not had to use the dashboard for my district, the Fowler Drive district. So no, I have not. I have not used the dashboard, and I don't know if any of the other commissioners were. Carol, are you using the dashboard?
I'm using it right now. I was just, the thing is that we do have so many things going on that, I mean, I don't know if this is too much to ask from someone to, like monthly or like send us up a email with that link, because otherwise I'm so much in the process of like looking at emails that going into this, into here, which I've looked at before, I wouldn't be looking at it, and I had to do a search of my like email to find it. So that's I have looked at it before, but it was probably at another meeting like this.
If I could interject real quick and provide a few thoughts, I'm the new guy, so this is just from the new guy standpoint. My understanding with the dashboard was that, we really wanted to get a bunch of data. We really weren't sure what kind of data that we were going to get. We just wanted to get a bunch of data and put it out there and be very transparent about it. Now, what I hear the commissioner saying is that, we're not always going to go to the dashboard. It'd be nice to have, maybe an update provided to us, at a certain point in time. And so I think a couple of months ago, neighborhood leaders came to a work session. We kind of provided an update there. But I would say that's the expectation moving forward, Commissioner Thornton, Commissioner Myers, that we will be providing updates to the Mayor and Commission on a more frequent basis, whether it's quarterly, whether it's twice a year. I think we may have landed on quarterly if I remember correctly. But one thing I also want to note here is that the neighborhood leaders are collecting so much data, and it's useful to for some very specific things, but it may not be useful for the more global view that you all want to look at. So part of today was, okay, we're collecting all this data around these outputs, but I would love to hear from you all on the outcomes. Are there very specific outcomes that you all want us to put into the new contract? Because this discussion is really tied to the update of the contract that's going to be coming before Mayor and Commission. So part of the update Haley mentioned earlier is tied to going from a calendar year to a fiscal year. But the other part is putting performance measurements into this contract to ensure that we're all saying the same thing and we're all asking the neighborhood leaders for the same thing, and trying to set expectations, if you will. So Haley's got this column on the far right, outcomes. Maybe we could go through some of the outcomes that you are interested in. 20 outcomes, that's a little tough. Maybe we should start with 7 outcomes to 10 outcomes, 5 to 7 outcomes. We could work real hard on getting those outcomes and then being able to provide that information back to you all on those scheduled updates.
Now, I might be, I'm the last one that likes a lot of meetings, and I always try to keep them short. I think the goals and the objectives today are very clear. They're very concise. I just don't know about me. I would like to look at this document and kind of really digest it a little bit more than to say this is the outcome today. So that's I think that's where I am. If other folks feel like they want to tackle this, even though, Carol, you're not a member of this committee, I would appreciate your input, but I would like to digest this. I wish I had seen, we kind of had it before today, then I could be more objective.
We can certainly provide that information to this entire group. Yes, ma'am.
And one of the things we very much want is exactly what Nikki and Haley said. We want you to tell us what you want. And so if you'll look through this,
I just don't
where
feel
you
as
want the focus to be. I completely understand that you.
Yeah, I just don't feel as confident, even though I got worldwide vision of what I want the neighborhood leaders to look like. But I just want to have the opportunity to adopt. This chart is amazing. Let me say that up front. And I do think that it is covered. It looks like it's covered a lot of the concerns I've had in the past months. I would like to really, because if we're going to use this data to help draft the contract, we want to make sure that we're not going to be asking for too much or too little, and be able to document or have those outcomes when we come around again. I just think this is too important for me to do this in 45 minutes.
Thank you. And I have to say, I appreciate you saying you don't need to ask for too much. And I certainly understand you don't want to ask for too little.
So Commissioner Thornton, just to be clear, what we're going to do is we're going to send this information to you all, and you guys are going to read through it and ponder it. And do we need to have another meeting to talk about the performance measurements or the outcomes that you want entered into the contract? Or are we going to do this by email? How would you like to move forward with this?
I think we would probably do email. Russell and Mike chime in, Carol chime in. I think we could do by email. You can kind of synthesize it, and then we'll meet and go forward. Could that be a plan? And I don't want to hold the process up. I really don't. So with some real clear deadlines on how long does it take us to look at this, and when do we get back together as a committee?
Yeah, I do have a question for you all on this, on the outputs and outcomes, this whole logic model. have the neighborhood leaders themselves reviewed this and given input?
They've not seen the logic model. We've discussed the goals or the performance expectations in detail. We spend a lot of time on that. In fact, I refresh that. I mention that oftentimes every month, at least once or twice a month. So we've not.
I like that question, Carol.
We can, and
I think it's almost like a self-evaluation tool.
Yes.
Because I could say something like, and then they get like, what the heck? You know what I mean? I do think that that's a very good point to include them or have some input or give us some more input. So I think that's an excellent excellent idea, Carol.
And we can share it on Monday during our Monday morning meetings. The activities, of course, would be those that I would think that they'd be most interested in, because that we're saying this is the activity you'll be doing for this particular goal, and they're very much aware of that. Outputs and outcomes is the entire program numbers.
So question for you, Tim and Terrace, the outputs and when they're collecting all of this data, don't they know ahead of time which data they're reporting on every month?
Absolutely.
And
yes, absolutely.
That's what I want to say. Everything in here
is already
they're very familiar with, but they're not familiar with it in this layout and with this logic model. But I'm a little bit embarrassed that I didn't think of that myself. So thank you, Commissioner Myers, for suggesting it. We'll certainly share
it on Monday.
So again, to be clear, that all this information here is information that they're already aware of, that they're already doing, that they're already tracking. So this is nothing new. They just haven't seen it in this form, correct?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
But those outcomes, have they been who figures out those outcomes, or have you not? Is that the part I think Commissioner Hamby asked about before? You guys don't have you been collecting that information or analyzing that information on the outcomes?
And this also goes back to what Nikki was saying about we have so many outcomes that, for example, we do know how many residents they've directly assisted in enrolling in SNAP, doing that, but they've referred, but then actually providing assistance, and we can track how many they literally helped enroll. And we can count how many were enrolled in SNAP. Some of the others, it's more challenging to follow up. If they got somebody connected to a job training program, if it's someone they're working with week to week, they may know if they completed the program. But they're doing so much with so many that I'm not confident that they could say for everybody they've connected to forklift training program that they know how many actually completed and got jobs as forklift operators. Does that make sense? We have some of the outcome data. I think we've got pretty much everything related to outputs, but some of those outcomes, and some of those outcomes are longer term anyway. But
and I just wouldn't want you to have, like Nikki was saying, have too many outcomes in there, and also like which outcomes you can actually. You have a methodology for, you can find a methodology for actually figuring them out.
Very important.
And I also still like this idea, because I don't want the neighborhood leaders to think that the commissioners are looking for these aha, I got you moments.
Yeah.
Because we're thinking they're doing something and they're doing something else just as important. Just because we say that is, that's my goal, I really, this is just to strengthen what we already, and we do learn from trial and error. So I'm good. So this is really it's meant to be a positive step forward, so we can have a solid contract that when we as commissioners are asked about the neighborhood leaders, we can justify and demonstrate what we know and not what is written in the contract. if that makes sense.
Makes complete sense.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Thornton, for that.
And I didn't add something on because I was just in a conversation with someone else about, having it in terms of like Commissioner Thornton saying we're not trying to catch you, but actually having the neighborhood leaders involved in this so that it's a real formative process that we can learn from what's actually going on out there, where some things might be, well, that's, like we're never going to be able to catch that, so why are we having that on there? Or like just have some real on the ground reflection on this and evaluation of it as well.
Absolutely.
Makes
Thank you.
complete sense. There's so many things that old saying of not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that's counted counts.
Yes.
And so what we want to do is identify those things that we can count and that we want to count, and that may reflect also some of the things that are not so measurable. I mean, people who have traditionally been not at the table, feeling like they are part of the community and they're connected to the community. I mean, we can measure how many people are on boards or committees. We can't really measure how people in the neighborhoods feel, but I think that's an important part of the work. So how do we measure something that relates to that? So,
well, Tim, thanks for bringing that up. And, commissioners, I would ask you to think through what Tim has said when we think about the outcomes that we want to put in the contract. I'm going to give you an example. Do we care, or do we want to be notified of the percent of residents successfully registered to vote, for example? Is that something that's important? If it is, that's what we put into the contract. That's what we measure. That's what we tell the neighborhood leaders. Expectations are clear. And I think that's what we're looking for. And I know that we need to send this to you. I know it's going to take some time and some email back and forth, but I think that's where we're headed.
That's exactly where we're headed. That's exactly where, I think we're headed. I will say this, and I am mindful of the time. The other things, and we don't have to discuss it now, Tim and Terrace, the neighborhood leaders have grown exponentially as far as responsibilities are concerned. They're being trained by and working with a lot of other agencies, especially during the pandemic. And this is not a discussion for right now, but I do want to throw out, how are we commensurating their salaries as they move up, and I guess my question is, when you have a new neighborhood leader that comes in and they're making the same amount as someone who's been there for 2 years, how do we, if this is going to be a permanent thing that is going to be positive, I would like for you to give some thought to share with us at some point. I think that human nature will soon make people be a little resentful that you're getting paid the same thing that I've been doing 3 years from now. This is not for a decision now, but it is a thought and one of my notes that points I put on my note paper. My other thought is, when we first started, we really were trying to connect neighborhood leaders to school zones that they lived in. I know that has changed somewhat. So I would assume that would not be the highest, that would not be one of the requirements as we started out before. Again, these are just thoughts. And my last thought is, what do we do, or how do we address neighborhood leaders that are no longer living in Athens or have gotten a much better job somewhere else. So those are the three things. I know you're not prepared to answer today. I'm just putting it out there, and maybe in our next conversation we can explore it. Those were my three points.
Thank you. And I know we don't have time to discuss them today. The longevity pay raise is not something we've talked about pay raises for the neighborhood leaders, and in fact, the base salary that was set is actually below what y'all now requires your minimum for any government employee. We have been able to get other funding to give them some pay raises, but we would like to talk about more. And thank you for that point about longevity and maybe having more graduated salaries. We had not talked about that before. So we'll think about it, and certainly welcome any guidance or input that any of y'all have.
You may be asking the government for some more money.
Well, I would like to ask the government for money specifically to increase salaries, but
no, yeah. I do think if we're advocating livable wages, we do need to at least pay attention and not pretend that these wages have become just paralyzed. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa, are these full-time or part-time jobs?
They're full-time jobs. We do have 2 part-time SNAP neighborhood outreach.
Okay.
SNAP outreach neighborhood leaders. They're 20 hours, but for the most part, the majority of the neighborhood leaders are indeed full-time.
And what is the salary right now?
$33,000.
Okay.
It was through that partnership with DFACS that we were able to give them the $3,000 raise
Yes.
above what Unigovernment's funding.
So Unigovernment funds $30,000. The Unigovernment funds $30,000 of their salaries, and the $3,000 was the addition we were able to get with the SNAP outreach grant.
So that is that how long is that grant?
It's annually from October to October, but we're actually about to look into it, submitting it again. But it started in October.
Okay.
And the Georgia DFACS people have indicated that they really like the partnership and that it's the strongest they have right now in the state, and that they anticipate it being, what did Clifford from Georgia DFACS say, Terrace, a marriage?
Long-term marriage. We are not divorcing. Those are his words. Those are his words. We will not get a divorce.
Okay.
And with that, we appreciate it. Definitely professional stretch and growth for the neighborhood leaders. But with these opportunities, that's more reporting, more expectation. So I'm very excited at the opportunities for us to grow professionally. And with that, that's in addition to doing, meeting these goals as it relates to our performance measures. But it's been a joy. It's been a joy.
Carol, were you about to say something?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just a guest on here, but, I'm thinking about this and this logic model and everything in there. And I'm thinking, this is like, this is a minimum wage. Well, our minimum wage, at $15 an hour comes out to $31,200. I mean, it just seems like a lot of responsibility.
Yes.
So I'm very appreciative, and I hope it leads to opportunities for the neighborhood leaders.
Yes.
I don't know how many of them are. I mean, so much of this is social work. There's a social work program at Athens-Clarke, and I just want. It's a big responsibility, and it's a low salary, and so I don't want us to. I just want us to be aware of that there's a discrepancy between that salary and the responsibility here.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
And the other thing that I think that we talked about at the very beginning are there any neighborhood leaders that have taken these new trainings and maybe have gone back to school to get these degrees? Because that's the whole thing. When they're lifting other people up, they should be getting lifted up all at the same time. I would really think we would want them to advance to something bigger and better.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to bring in new folks. So that's just another thought. I know we are now at 1:32, but I hope somebody's taking notes of these just things.
Yeah, those
I will say that
great suggestions, and many of them, nobody's gone back to school, but many of them have gotten various certifications, trainings or what have you, but many of them have not gone back to school.
And two of them have
They
gotten
purchased home. I'm sorry,
much better.
Tim.
I apologize. Go ahead, Terrace.
No, what I was going to say is, they are engaging in various trainings, getting certifications. We have, opportunities often. And I'm really happy when that happens. Just yesterday, I got an email from a neighborhood leader that submitted 5 certificates on various trainings. And so that's happened. But we've also had a couple of neighborhood leaders purchase homes, vehicles. So it's been happy to see that growth.
Okay.
And two have gotten much better paying jobs, doing really important work, and left us for that. And then 2 others have left us to run their own businesses.
Yes.
And as far as I can tell, they're both being successful in this.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, all my questions are answered. Anybody else? Commissioners Hamby, Edwards, Myers, anything?
Nope, I'm all good.
You good, Russell?
Well, again, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Do we need some deadlines, Assistant Manager Jones, for the next step process?
We will send the information out directly after this meeting. However long, it takes you all to come up with some outcomes or comments on the logic model. We can turn that around pretty quickly into some sort of consolidated presentation for the next prosperity committee. So, is a week too soon? And we could
I want to definitely make sure we get the comments from the neighborhood leaders back to us. And Tara says she's going to do that Monday.
Yeah, I'll present this on Monday. Yes.
Yeah. So a week would probably work.
So Thursday coming up, set up a meeting, and then we'll consolidate everybody's comments around the logic model, hear about what the neighborhood leaders have to say around the logic model, and then we will present our findings then.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. I'll get Cynthia to set up a meeting. Now, is everyone on the call available Thursday?
I'll make sure I am. Myself available
today, right?
If it's at the same time, I have a 2:00 on Thursday of next week and something in early morning that ends at 10.
Thursday at 1:00?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I am, the guest here, but I'm have to get to the airport in Atlanta for I think it's a 6 p.m. flight to visit my brother. So I'm not sure if I'd be here or not. Haven't thought that far ahead on those logistics.
Well, I sure hope that you are. You brought a lot to this conversation today. Thank you.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
So I'll defer, maybe this is in an email to the commission to tell us when you want to meet. Commissioner Myers, I hear that you're not going to be available at 1:00 next Thursday. Commissioner Thornton, I'll defer to you on whether or not you want to keep it at that time.
I will get with Commissioner Myers after this, and since this got sprung on her, and then I'll get back with you.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Nikki, what's next on the agenda?
Grant specialist update.
So talking about how neighborhood leaders have moved on into other opportunities, that's a good segue because one of our grant specialists, and we have two, one is Coral Rogers, the other is Blaine McDonald. Coral was actually a neighborhood leader before she joined our department. So she's been doing great work. And Blaine had previously been a case manager and a shelter coordinator at Family Promise, a local homeless emergency shelter. So the bulk of their work and what they've been doing over, and I guess they both started in March of 2021, so it's been almost a year that they've been in their roles. They've been working on a number of things related to nonprofit capacity building. So, you know, in their time with the department, they've worked on a number of different things. They've actually worked on researching nonprofit capacity building programs in other communities. And as you all recall, we presented a nonprofit capacity building program idea back in May of 2021. So in that work, they've looked at what other communities are doing, what other governments are doing, looking at best practices and nonprofit capacity training. And the bulk of their time really has been spent building relationships with nonprofits in the community. They've got a listserv, a mailing list of, I think, around 100 nonprofits locally who they are communicating with regularly. That includes access to information about different grant opportunities. And on top of that, when there are grant opportunities available, they actually meet individually with nonprofits to provide technical assistance on grant writing or any other kind of capacity building training that an organization may request. There are representatives on the local nonprofit training series partnership. That's a partnership between UGA's Institute for Nonprofit Organizations, their Office of Service Learning, United Way is a part of that partnership, as well as the Athens Area Community Foundation. So that group plans a number of different training opportunities that are available for free in the community. And our grant specialists actually presented at the last opportunity, and they've had some follow-up from that presentation. And they actually talked about logic models and assisted in coordinating with Tim and Terrace on the logic model for the Neighborhood Leaders Program. They've also got a directory of best practices for nonprofits that they work to update. And the reason that is a very important endeavor is because more and more grant opportunities are focusing on what is the data to support what you're doing with your program. If you want money for a program, what does evidence say about, you know, what works, what doesn't, why should we fund your program? So you can imagine if you're a case manager or in the field actually doing the work of supporting people, your time to look through research articles to find out what best practices are is pretty limited. So their work trying to pull together documents and evidence for people to cite in grant applications, we feel is really important as a way to support nonprofits to continue doing the work in the community and spend less time trying to Google different articles to support grant applications. So they've also work to do technical assistance, you know, after different grant opportunities we've had through the department. They assisted with our CDBG technical assistance period this past year. When we had the indigent services funding opportunity, I think last April or May, they followed up with every single applicant to provide feedback on applications and help them workshop their applications and programs for future opportunities. So they've been busy doing a lot of work.
It sounds like it, and again, I'm mindful of the time. And you said a whole bunch. So I am going to ask if you could put some of what you said in some type of written documentation or PowerPoint presentation, because I have a lot of questions, and well, I have some questions. I ain't got a lot of questions because you said a lot of things that I didn't even know were going on. And and I have questions, but I do better when I see things in writing. So if you could document some of that, and maybe not as detailed as you said it, but give me some broad brush narrative. I think when we meet again, I can digest everything you said. Okay.
We can summarize that.
I see that Mike has left because he had another meeting. Assistant manager. Well, no, let me do this first. Carol, do you have any thoughts?
No, nothing.
Russell, do you have any thoughts?
Sounds good.
Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Manager Jones to summarize what Haley said and what I said and give us next steps.
Certainly. So as far as the neighborhood leaders, the next steps will be immediately after this meeting, we'll send you the presentation and the logic model so everyone can review it. Our apologies for not sending that ahead of time. And then that will give the commission an opportunity to review the logic model, think through the outcomes that may be important to you, and we can share those important outcomes via email. And then at the same time, Terrace and Tim will be meeting with the neighborhood leaders to go over that logic model. Whatever comments or feedback they get from that, they will share with us. And then we'll be prepared to come back to the Prosperity Committee for another meeting. That could be Thursday at 1 o'clock if, Commissioner Thornton, that's what you want to do, or at a different time. You just let us know. We'll get it set up. As it relates to the grant specialists, Haley's going to put together some bullet points. I've already seen them, so I know that she has them. She can probably send them to you pretty quickly as well, related to what they're doing. And, I just want to echo, I think we all heard what the grant specialists are doing. It's a lot of work. And y'all, when the ARPA funds start trickle through, once we get through the ARPA process, those grant specialists are going to be really important in the important part of that process. So I will ask Haley to send that stuff over pretty quickly, and that's all I know, and that's all I have. Haley, do you have anything else?
And my three questions that I left for Tim and Terrace about compensation, transitioning of folk, and what was the other one? People who move out of
living in the zone. Mm-hmm.
Zones. Yeah.
And as it relates to that one item related to compensation, that's a budgetary item. And I know that you all know that. And of course, we're in the midst of budget season. So the quicker we have that discussion, it sounds like we're about to have that discussion. The quicker we wrap our heads around the needs, the resources, the quicker we can put that into the budget process.
Thank you. Well,
Absolutely.
This was wow. We did it. Did I miss anything? With that, I will ask to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Carol, you got a second. Mike has got.
Yeah, second.
All in favor? Say goodbye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
You.